Okay, I'm going to start. If somebody will join later, perfect. If not, enough for me. Thank you guys so much for joining. For people who will be listening later, thank you so much as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Alina Spark, as you can see on the screen, and I'm lead customer success team manager here at Warmy. And today I want to have like a conversational, friendly webinar with my colleague and friend Alexander. And basically, the main point here is to dive into crucial role of customer success and basically how much it plays in IT companies, software as a service companies, but other industries as well. And we'll cover things from starting from the onboarding to basically client becoming our advocates. Alexander, passing the mic to you. Would love to hear an introduction from you as well.
Excellent, thank you. So, my name is Alex, and I'm leading customer success strategy at anybees.io. And I'm super excited about this webinar. It's my opportunity to share some insights about what was working for us, how we basically discovered that the proper treatment of your customers, proper customer success engagement, can have a very huge impact on long-term user retention and growth.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. And I'm moving to the slide here. And basically, this is something that you'll hear a lot throughout the webinar and probably in the whole customer success journey, that customer success is not just support. It's basically about strategy. It's about driving the engagement from the very beginning and basically making sure that clients see the value from the product, from the cooperation throughout the whole journey. And another keyword that will be rephrased here a lot of times is being basically proactive and not reactive.
Just couldn't stress that more. And it seems like an obvious thing if you tell that to the crowd, but in fact, when I saw so many businesses around here, many people just miss that. And basically, the early stage of customer journey, it's critical. And we know that proactive engagement delivers you much better results than reactive support. It's literally the construction of foundation of your relationship with your customer, with your user, that you build from the very beginning.
Yeah, definitely agree with you here. Like something that, and we'll talk about those numbers later, but basically something that I'm trying to preach throughout all of my career is that the onboarding itself is the foundation. And I remember when I started and I was nervous talking to the clients, I treated the onboarding basically as a checklist of questions that I need to go through. And basically I wasn't thinking outside of the box. I wasn't trying to understand the client. I was just trying to answer those questions that I've written down. But right now I understand that onboarding is not just a checklist. Obviously, there's a set of questions that you need to ask to understand the client, how they work, but it's actually a first impression of the product itself and of you as a person who will be taking them through this journey. So I feel like onboarding is basically a break or make experience in terms of the customer relationship.
Couldn't agree more. And we did the same thing here. Like here, we have a very similar approach. We try to focus on scalable success framework, product-led growth, but at the same time, we do all of that without compromising the engagement with customers. And that it actually pays off on many levels. Like we learn and track every touch point of our users, their lifetime, so that we can automate and ensure that there's always somebody there for a customer to be there for them, even if the product is, if it's a product-led growth or if it's a person-led growth, there's still an engagement with the customer, and that's like the baseline.
Yeah, 100%. Like small spoiler here, we'll be talking a bit about automation and product-led growth clients, but I definitely agree with you because it does not matter where the person came from in terms of the client. It's really, really important to pay attention to them. And our CEO, both of Anybiz and Warmy, like his main value in both companies is that the customer is kind of the most important thing, is the most valuable thing. And we always try to make sure that all of the issues addressed. So basically there's like a human touch to that, but also we are here to strategize, to help, to basically make sure that they're getting what they're paying for. And basically in terms of those numbers, again, this is like a small research that we've done on our own. Definitely some companies might have different experience, but again, from what I see, it's something that happens a lot. So for example, on average, 25% of software as a service customers, they churn within 60 days. And this is a very, very huge opportunity to improve, because this kind of point of onboarding is really important. In Warmy, we usually have an onboarding stage of around 90 days. So when client comes to us, we keep them as onboarding in progress stage until we know that they're going to become our advocates, and then we basically move them to work in progress. And this is because in the first 60 days, maybe in the first 3 months, depending on the project, depending on the company, those timelines and this kind of relationship is the most important to actually show and bring the value to the clients.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because even though we work in completely different products, but we had exactly the same observation that the most universal time frame of the most attention you have to dedicate to user is 3 months, which is 90 days that you mentioned. I tested myself. There are many reasons for that. One of them is probably even psychologically, that when user starts with you, they don't get to feel absolutely confident until they pass the threshold of 3 months or 90 days, which clearly shows that during this period of time, we have to be super careful, attentive to them. And basically what we do ourselves when we get a new customer, we know that for the first 3 months we got to see that person on a weekly basis. We know that we got to check and answer any question as fast as we can. And in reality, we can see that basically after the user passes that point, basically they're ready to move to the next stage. When you can reduce the quantity of engagement, you still keep that, but the customer themselves, they will not require that as much. So basically you just move them into a different stage. And what I noted myself, another stage that I can probably outline, that the next 3 months, basically that's where the product is basically getting used to product. The product is intertwining into their life, their processes. So basically, if you did treat your customer well during 6 months, I can certainly tell they're going to stay for another 6 months, or they're going to stay even further. They're ready to become advocates, and that works just great.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about those things and they sound really obvious and they're kind of universal and applicable to each company, but it's really easy to talk about it. And I think a lot of people know it, but it's really different when you're actually inside of it, and you have a lot of day-to-day tasks and you're busy and you kind of clients are messaging you, asking questions. So you have to be reactive sometimes, but sometimes you just need to stop yourself, take a moment to think and basically decide hey, am I going to be more of a support person, or am I going to be more of a strategic consultant to my clients? And it is very difficult. And actually this is I know I talk a lot about it and my team is here, so they probably will confirm that, but it is really, really difficult in real life to do. So yeah, just stay for a moment, think about everything, and then go further. So no rush here with the clients.
That's, I believe, why we need to have teams. That's why I believe we need to have a proper toolkit for that. There are plenty of instruments that can make this task easier.
Yeah, 100%. And basically client's journey, I would say from sign up to becoming advocates, it's pretty linear on paper. Again, in reality, it does not work like that. But the main rules that I try to follow is basically onboarding has to be structured. Although it's not a checklist, but there's certain things that you need to find out from a client. And you find out those things not because you need to check mark that you've done it, but because you need to understand how the business works. Obviously, as Alex just mentioned, engagement and early check-ins. So if you onboard the clients and then you don't talk to them in the next few weeks and they're on their own, at risk 100%. Also, you have to fill a client. Sometimes they're really independent. They don't need as much help. They don't need as much support. Sometimes you have to be a parent to a client. You basically need to take them everywhere, hold their hands and help them. And there are also basic things as feedback loops. So basically constantly talking to all of the teams, talking to the clients, saying hey, we're going to get this resolved. And the good stuff are expansion signals, and then obviously turning clients to advocates. So basically a client being hey, I love you guys. I'm going to promote you. I'm going to give you a lot of testimonials, which is our end goal here, I feel like.
That's for sure. One thing I would probably add, and that's my own personal observation, that the most vulnerable time of your user is first months. And It's needless to say that onboarding is super important. It's just the foundation and that's it. But what I observed myself, and what that was part of the test we ran, that users that had basically there's a very strong correlation between the amount of engagement your users have in the beginning and their churn rate in the future. It's just interdependent. So basically it works quite simple. If you dedicate some time to your customers when they start with you, you can expect them to move forward into second, third, fourth months, and so on. But if you don't do that, don't get surprised that person, I don't know, they let's say, interpreted the value they receive from your product. They misinterpreted how exactly they can utilize your product, and just simply miss some of the super cool features that could drive them revenue, make their life better. And I can keep going for a very long time, but I believe everybody here understands my point that first months after onboarding, you gotta stay vigilant, you gotta stay attentive to user at this period of time.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really interesting that you mentioned that because I'm going to talk about the case study. Basically, it's a real case that we had. But to be honest, I think if you ask anybody in any company, it does happen all the time. So basically, we had a client, B2B lead generation agency. And what happened? They came in as self-service, meaning that they haven't had any kind of human interaction with the sales team, with the support team, and obviously they didn't have a dedicated customer success manager. And in the beginning, they had a lot of issues. So they had problems with the platform usage. Again, our main goal here is to make sure that clients are getting the results, and they were not getting the results. We found this client by accident because they were so fed up and tired, and they messaged the support and were like, guys, like we are leaving. We don't know how to do that. We're just wasting money here. And then our support team was like, hey, like Success, do you want to go and talk to this client? And we had proper onboarding with them. We tailored the features that will be useful for them. And basically we came up with the strategy with exact things that they have to do in the next 3 months, and then things that they expect us to do in the next 3 months, basically things that we need to deliver to them. And after that, clients are really, really happy. They wrote a couple of really good reviews to us. They gave some testimonials, but it could have been churned really, really easily just because they didn't have any proper onboarding and any human interaction to help them customize the experience with the platform.
Oh, that's definitely a very good case to present. And I definitely had cases like that myself, not once. And so I can confirm everything that this story must be true, because not once I saw a customer who didn't have an engagement in the beginning, they missed something. And then, their happy faces you have in the end of that story. I mean, after they dealt with all the challenges, and suddenly that person is bringing over his friends, or they're writing you reviews and they're saying, wow, you guys are great. By the way, they already purchased a few more licenses with you, so they're scaling up. And when you recall that, okay, these guys were at the brink of churn when I met them, they were halfway there. And to see them sitting here happy, looking at you, I might get a bit sentimental here, but that's probably one of the things that drive me further
into it. But yeah, when client says thank you guys, you're so good, I'm like, don't pay me salary this month, your compliment, your thank you is enough for me. I'm joking, but this is kind of how I feel it. But yeah, again, I think it's a universal experience, and it's really important to catch those clients. And you cannot talk to everybody, but try talking to as many people as possible, because it's going to pay off in the end. It's going to pay off personally to you as a professional, and obviously to the company.
That's for sure. And since we are talking about this, I think it's quite important to talk about a bit about what are the habits to achieve all of that, because you got to do something to get these results. So I assume that our listeners might be curious to know, okay, so these guys are saying they're getting good results. What are they doing? So here is what I do myself. For example, the very first thing, the foundation of success for me is you have to get a good overlook about what is going on. And like Alina mentioned before, basically be as a proactive strategist and be as a supporter. It actually takes enormous amount of time, just enormous. And how do we do that? And I already said that before too, that basically what helps us is right tools at hand. You need to have tools to see everything. You need to have tools to keep an eye on your customer. You need to have tools to get a good understanding the status of your customer. You need to have good tools to remind yourself about what you have to do. You need to minimize the time you spend on mundane stuff like writing some reports. You should have a good note taker actually to write down. And this basically, if you don't have that, you're going to spend too much time doing manual work, and you will not even be able to either provide a proper support or to be a proactive strategist to foresee the problems that might appear. You just can't do any of that if you are doing everything manually, unless you have one or two customers, but that's basically not a business. That would probably be a charity or profit loss business, which we don't want to talk about. And the second thing is, with the right toolkit at your disposal, you need to see every single aspect of your users activity, performance, their status. You got to see that. And this is basically, in my personal opinion, that's the key for proactive approach. When you see the problem before it actually becomes visible for users, you react to that, you fix that so quick that the user don't even notice there was something off. You find problems before problems become problems. And trust me, you can see that in numbers. I'm not going to get into specifics of products. I believe everybody has their own niche and their own things. But the key here is that if you track enough information about performance of your customers, you'll be able to see that some stuff can actually be predicted. And even I myself, I constantly keep learning that more and more things can be predicted. So I don't even know myself the limit, to this, basically visibility. But I can tell you for sure that possibilities are great, and that's basically like one of the things that helps you to avoid so much churn. It helps you with retention so much, because you see problems just before they actually become problems, and it has dramatic impact on your customer happiness, satisfaction. They obviously have a better performance, better results, and no matter from what perspective you can look at that, your customer is winning from this. And lastly, I know I've been talking for quite a while, but I wanted to say one more thing. You have to check on your customers. Obviously, dashboards and all tools for visibility, they can tell you a lot of things, but they won't tell you probably the most important, and that's the mood of your customer. And I'm not talking about mood being absolutely serious. It matters. Sometimes users that have good results might not be happy with that. Sometimes users that have maybe not the results that you'd say your average customer has, but they might be happy about that. So it's very important for you to, I don't know what the frequency is optimal for which product. I have my own, which is at least once a week for users that have been 3 months with us, and then once in 2 weeks for users that have been more than 3 months. I can tell you that knowing how your customer feels about the progress is crucial, and you can learn it only when you meet them. So you can learn if they're unhappy with something, even that is something that you consider to be okay. And I had cases like that. That's not something you would predict normally, but I can tell you that, and you can address that. Or if you see that your customer is happy, then why don't you take an opportunity and basically make them an advocate, let them spread awareness, use their network to spread awareness about your product, how great you are. So no matter how you look at that, that is also super important. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, it definitely resonates with me, and to the check-in points and checking the mood of the client. In all seriousness, it's really really difficult to do. I remember when I started working as a customer success, it was really difficult for me to ask the client, like, "Hey, what do you think? Like, are we getting to your expectations? Are we getting you the results?" I was just checking the dashboards, and I was like, "Well, like we got to this number, so they must have been happy." But then when clients started churning after we kind of overachieved in terms of the results, I was like, maybe there's something outside of those numbers that I also need to check in. So definitely agree with you. Like I try to go to the calls with clients and be like, hey guys, like how are we feeling? Like, are you okay? Are you happy with the service? Are you happy with the product? Anything that we can do for you, we can fix for you. And I'm not talking about bugs or like any product things, but like generally, like strategically, what can we do for you to make it better? Or are we good enough and we just continue doing what we're doing right now? And it took me probably a few years, I would say, to actually become confident in asking those questions. You also mentioned something about the tools. Love tools, love automation. I try to automate as many things as possible. I never knew it's going to be so difficult and so manual to automate a lot of things, but this is where we kind of as a company strive to get. CRM is really important. You need to track all of your clients. I know that some of my team members are using like tool management like Trello or Asana. Myself, I have like a notebook where I write everything down. So very old school, but like whatever works for you. Recording, so important. We use HubSpot and we have a recorder that is linked to HubSpot, and it basically transfers all of the action items. It can create tasks for us. So basically really automated, really easy. I have a memory of a fish, so it's really convenient for me because like a tool is basically writing everything down for me. So super helpful. So again, like striving here to make sure that everything is automated, manual tasks are done by the tools, and actually strategical thinking is done by the people.
Well, we use pretty much the same, let's say, structure of toolkit. Basically, it all starts with some sort of tools for visibility, which is normally for us, it's a dashboard. Secondly, I mean, like we have different tools for, dashboards, but you get the idea. That's a CRM must have. In our case, there's also HubSpot. Great tool, very convenient, a lot of capabilities, but even HubSpot sometimes might not be quick enough to customize, and that's why I actually use a lot of Google Sheets. Because when you just got an idea, you have to write something down in a structured way. Google Sheets is going to be a thing. Later afterwards, when you have that structure, you can pass that into HubSpot. But you'll also, operate with enormous amount of tables, and that is normal. And what I mentioned before, and that's something I discovered myself like half a year ago. That was probably November 2024. That having a good note taker is actually super helpful. I might have sometimes like 17 meetings per day. So don't blame me for not remembering stuff, but I don't remember like every single word that might have been there. And note taker is my basically salvation here. I can look up what the conversation was about. I have wrap ups. And that is probably the coolest thing about that, because the common note takers would simply provide you a recording and you have to listen to 30 minutes of conversation. And we just talked that we have a lot of customers we need to help all the time, that we need to make sure they are happy. So do we have time to listen to 30 minutes? No. And note taker that I'm using, I'm not promoting anything, but a good note taker can actually give you a wrap up, so you can quickly look up what was the conversation about, give you the best points, and you'll have enough time to dedicate that time to your customers. So yes, that's important.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think we're at time here. We have a couple of questions left for a couple of minutes left for questions if you have any. But just kind of a finishing word from us. Thank you so much for joining. If there are people who are watching this offline after it got recorded, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, you can find us on LinkedIn, you can find us on other social networks. And if you will have anything, any thoughts, please share it with us. It's going to be super important for us to hear from you. Guys, thank you so much for joining. It's really important for us. Any questions, any issues, any concerns, we're here to listen, we're here to help, and we would love to learn from your experience as well. I'm not sure if this webinar will be published to all of the platforms, but definitely LinkedIn, definitely YouTube, maybe Twitter, I'm not sure. But yeah, in any case, find us and then let us know if you have something.
I want to say a couple of words myself. I really appreciate everybody who was listening to us today. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this might help you, to hearing your feedback, and obviously if you have some questions, I'll be more than happy to help you out with that and share my own insights and experience.
Yeah. And Alex, thank you so much for the conversation. Always love talking to you, always love sharing and hearing your experience. So I feel like it was productive, maybe not just for other people, but for me as well, because like the experience that you shared is super, super helpful. So thank you.
Likewise, I appreciate that.
All right, then. Well, thank you so much, Peeps. Have a good day, everybody.
Cheers.